Welcome, Moto community. This is the only shit show on the internet. And I've got Cooksey with me. He's always fun to bring along because he's going to say some shit and get people all rattled up. And if we want to talk about Deegan, he's the man to talk about Deegan.
Hey, I 180'd on Deegan, so.
Okay. He's backpedaling a little bit because Deegan keeps
Backpedaling.
really
I've turned my back and I'm sprinting. No backpedaling. I'm running backwards.
Well, on that note, we also have somebody that has been going back in time by riding a 250 two-stroke. We've got Jared Lesher and his mechanic, Michael Shaw, with us. How are you guys doing?
They're good, man.
Doing good.
Hanging in there.
So since you guys look like you are in the truck, do you have the heat on right now, or are you just...
Yeah, well, we did for a little bit, but it gets a little warm in here, so we're like adjusting it as we go here.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught with carbon dioxide because it could, inhibit performance. It could be considered a PED.
We sleep in the van when we have to with the thing running. I mean, I don't know what you're too worried about.
You're hinting at Minneapolis last year, but
no, dude. Yeah, Indy, that place is incredibly cold. Supercross, I feel maybe I guess you couldn't have it in replace as motocross because of then you wouldn't have no motocross. You couldn't be outside while there's a bunch of snow. But
what are you saying,
anyway,
Johnny?
Well, I was just saying, like, how football is during winter, which sucks.
Yeah, and the sun comes up in the morning and it goes
down
at night. I'm not sure what you're hinting at, bro.
No, you won't let me finish talking. What I'm hinting at is if Supercross was run in the summer months, sort of like what World Supercross is doing, then you wouldn't have these issues of super cold temperatures. That's what I was working with. But then you'd piss off everybody that's ready to do motocross. And Robb may join us.
That only took 20 minutes. Way to explain that, Johnny.
Well, you kept interrupting me, so
I
had to dumb it down
this weekend. So
I had to use up coaches. Coach isn't here, so I get to use his airtime to bust your balls. So,
so Jared, what made you decide to race the 252 stroke as opposed to the 450?
I think the main deciding factor was when I got on the first day in December, riding on Supercross track. It was very impressive. I didn't think it would be that way. And then like after that day, like, I don't know, man, it was just a lot of fun. Rode it really well. And it wasn't near as much of a struggle as I thought it would be. So I was pleasantly surprised, and yeah, we kind of just ran with the idea, and I mean, heck, it's worked out so far.
If you guys don't know, Jared has been doing incredibly well in the 450 class on his 252 stroke. You qualified what at Daytona? You were qualifying, I believe, right around 25th, 30th?
34th.
34th. Dude, that's, again, during our waiting room that we were just in before I hit the live, watching you bust out a couple of those quads on that two-stroke, my jaw was just dropped. I was going, how is he doing that? That's got to be a 350. It's got to do something because it shouldn't have that much bottom end torque to it. But then your mechanic, Michael, sitting here saying that the motor blew, which we saw on your Instagram. You guys were in a ramble, and it was actually a stock 252 stroke.
Yeah.
So how was that? Was that different riding a stock bike as opposed to the bike you were used to riding?
Yeah. And not to mention it blew it was like the second lap of qualifying one. So I hadn't even like tripled through all the rhythm sections yet. Going into even the third qualifying session. So I was still learning the track, the third one, and also getting used to the power again because the motor was completely different than what I've been used to so far. So but the stock bike, it actually wasn't too bad, especially since the track was a little bit more open. You could ride the bike. I mean, if we were in a stadium, I think it probably would have mattered a little bit more because you don't have that bottom end grunt that the race bikes have or the race motors have. But being that Daytona is a little bit more open, I think that was probably an advantage for it.
do you think that there should be a 250 or just a 2-stroke class on top of what we have for the 250 lights class? It's not lights anymore, but 250 Supercross and 450 Supercross.
I wish they would just allow them in the 250F class. Ultimately, I think that would, just because I think there would be more of a market for them. You know what I mean? There'd be more guys looking to race them then.
Hey.
No, especially because of the homologation, most manufacturers are making new 2-strokes. And I believe for most of the amateur stuff, you're allowed to race a 250 2-stroke in the
You are.
250
You're allowed
class.
You're allowed to do it in Canada too.
Yeah,
I
for
know
pro
there's
stuff. So
the factory KTM in Canada, they have a guy on a 252 stroke racing the 250 class this year. So factory KTM is fielding a 252 stroke in the 250 class this year.
Well, and then that's a segue for the arena cross where you could run whatever you brought as long as it's not an 85, because you're racing against 250Fs and 450s and 125s. I don't know if you've seen anybody show up on a 125, but I mean, I like what Robbie's doing over there with arena cross by having it just being an open class.
yeah, no 125 so far, but heck, they go to some pretty out there places. So I wouldn't be too surprised.
Hey, Jared, I want to go back to your decision to get on the 252 stroke. It's awesome. Tell us why you did it. And then Stank is the #1 guy on 2-strokes. Did you have to get his approval?
Well, luckily I'm really good friends with Stank, and he's been kind of like an older brother to me over the years, because I've known Stank since doing the Amsoil arena cross stuff and 15, 16, 17 all the way until now. So yeah, luckily he wasn't he wasn't hard on me at all for it. He's actually helped. I've had questions like, what gearing you running, Supercross, like how are you doing your starts off the grate? Like I've actually had a lot of questions for him that he's been really helpful. And seems like he wants to help out as much as possible. So yeah, he's not at all salty about it. Which is awesome, obviously, because he's like paved the way doing it. So it's like, that's solid there. But as far as like the decision to ride it, I mean, I've said this a million times, but I'm not sure how long I get to do this for professionally. So, or how much longer. So it's like, man, if I can have a little bit more fun or a lot more fun on this thing, and the fans are behind it, and the support's there, it's like, why not?
Jared, how old are you, just for the people that are watching so that they know?
I turned 28 in September.
Coming
Is he
into your
Michael?
athletic prime.
Yeah, we're there. We're there.
How old's the mechanic, Mr. Shaw?
About to be 30 in April. Bunch of old farts.
Yeah.
Have you guys been saving any money racing the 2-stroke versus a 4-stroke?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an honest
And bike
question,
work.
because
Yeah,
I know
I mean,
a lot of people, maybe including myself, so are you going through more clutches, or?
I mean, the initial build's definitely a lot better as far as, I mean, you could spend 10 grand on a 250F motor, which we raced 2 years ago. And you're replacing stuff in there, those every 15 hours or so, and every season is a full overhaul. And I mean, you're in a quarter of that with a full-blown 2-stroke where we have it now. So I mean, just the initial cost of it, and we talked about it earlier. I mean, we really haven't been rough on clutches. I think we've
done really well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the race bike, we've been on the same clutch since the start of the season. So I mean, the clutch is holding up, pistons not so much, but I mean, they're cheap for a 2-stroke and they're easy to change. So as far as our consumables go, I mean, we've been pretty lucky, but the maintenance of a 2-stroke is.
And imagine if I would have grenaded a 250F last weekend in Daytona. Like, it could have been catastrophic, where I'm spending $3-4 grand to get the thing fixed, as opposed to like the 2-stroke. I just got, well, you got to get a new piston, fix a cylinder, whatever. But we're not near as in deep as we would be with the 250F.
Hey, and while we're sitting there, Johnny hasn't said anything. Coach Robb, welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. Good to have you. Sorry for the technical glitches. That's It's an honor to be here with you guys, man. You're killing it. I love it.
Sweet.
Keeping the
Thank you.
two-stroke real nice.
Heck
Yeah, the internet down there in Florida is. Sorry, Michael. Is that like a true thing? Does the internet is not very good in Florida, or?
I mean, I guess it depends on where you are. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where Coach is at, but
I think we're convinced that Florida's not a real state at this point.
Where did you guys get the motor? If you guys didn't already say, did you have a spare bike there, or did somebody lend you the stock?
Yeah, it was a lended motor. Luckily, I had a buddy down there racing amateur day, an older dude running plus classes that I actually trained his kid back home, and yeah, he offered it as soon as it happened. He offered it up, and I mean, obviously we didn't have too much time to do it, but went over, got the bike, rode it back to our pit. And by the time I got back there, Michael and Corey Barbie and the Gizmo Mods dude, they already had my motor out. So I rolled up with the stock bike. I roll into the garage, and as soon as I put it up on the stand, they're freaking yanking shit off of it. So yeah, it was a process, and I'm sure they were sweating, especially Michael, because he was. I mean, he didn't even know that we had 2 hours in between the second and the third session, and nobody told him either. Everybody kept telling him he had an hour, and he thought that he only had an hour. So he was working the whole time thinking he had an hour to finish it when he had 2.
Well, with that toolbox, I bet it only took him 30 minutes.
I think it took about 45.
It was crazy. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, it was. If you could imagine, obviously, like you said, you had to ride it back. So obviously, you have to drain the coolant to pull a motor. So popping the radiator cap on a hot bike was fun. I got that surprise pretty quick. But I mean, what can you do? You can't sit around and look at the thing and let it cool down to pull it, and made it work. So I mean, obviously, I had Corey helping me out, and Conrad from Gizmo. They both kind of chipped in and helped out where they could, and obviously swapping the motor. And then obviously we went from a built motor to a stock motor, so you have to change the jetting accordingly for that. So we had to do all that. I mean, it was a lot that went into it, but we obviously got it done and
made it worth it.
Yeah, anyways, made it in. So it's all that matters.
Because I'm just interrupting the other two
The
co-hosts.
Eichmanns are good people.
They are.
Definitely.
My honest question is, have
Yeah,
you changed
good people.
gearing much between arena cross and supercross on that 2-stroke?
No, really just the jetting. Like the jetting makes that big of a difference. And I say that as if like going to a smaller track, like that changes how the bike runs. But most of the arena crosses that we've done have been in elevation. So, and it's weird, but like where were we the last time? I literally just switched the ignition map, and it was that much more power on the bottom compared to like mid to top power.
We run a get ignition, and we have 2 pretty drastically different maps in them. He went out qualifying 1 or practiced, I guess, in New Mexico, which I just think obviously we're from the East Coast, but you think New Mexico is flat desert, probably pretty low elevation, but I think we were at like 3,300 feet there, and we were going to switch sprocket and go up a tooth and give it a little bit more. And then we ended up just switching maps to a more aggressive map. And that's all we had to do. I mean, we didn't have to jet anymore after that. We just switched an ignition map, and
it was perfect.
Good. So yeah, we've gone up a tooth 1 of the rounds. But really,
when the track gets really deep and slow, I mean, you got to switch your gearing accordingly. Cause you can't ride the bike whenever it's not in the right power. So, yeah, you definitely have to switch it accordingly, but we haven't ran in like this weekend in Indy. We might have to switch it just because it's going to be a little bit slower track compared to what we've been riding. But, yeah, that really depends too.
Well, do you just have like a standard 1352, or do you mind telling people what you're running?
Yeah, so we've been running between a 1350 and a 1351. Just depending on where we're at, we basically stick with those 2.
Are you in first gear at all throughout a supercross track?
Yeah, Daytona, the little like after you came across the start and you did like the off-camber berm right there. And then we were making the tight left and we were single and double over that 353. So I was actually using first gear around that inside, down into that left-handed corner to the 353. And I would roll in first gear and jump from the big to the small, and then shift the second in the air, and then continue on and whatever. But yeah. Oh, and after after the Supercross triple two, I would downshift the second from third in the air. I would land in second, then I would shift the first, tug the inside around the bell, and I was going. Well, I'd shift back to second, but I would go roll, double, triple, 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 single, or whatever it was.
All in first gear?
No, I would shift the second for that. I didn't. I wouldn't run first for that, but second gear works pretty well for jumping the loops.
Cooksey, Robb, you guys have been super quiet.
Every time I try to talk, you cut me off, Johnny. So I was getting ready to start chatting with some people because yeah, it is what it is.
All right,
Nah,
stop
Jared,
trying to swipe
Jesus
left,
Christ.
put the phone down,
Uh,
and say something.
If you'll stop cutting me off halfway. No, Jared.
Break check. So
Jesus Christ, shut up, Johnny. Jared. So we were talking before we got on air and about how riding, being one of the only guys out there on a 2-stroke, and how the track develops for a 4-stroke. What do you do? Do you find yourself trying to cut out of lines? What do you do to compensate for that?
yeah. So cutting down out of the line works, especially in like qualifying too, whenever the track's like at its worst for the day so far. You can cut down and get away with it and still triple into the rhythm sections and that kind of thing. But man, I tell everybody, like, most of the time, the thing likes to roll the corners and it likes to stay high in the berms. It doesn't really change how I ride the track. I don't think. I use the lines almost to my advantage in a sense. Like, if there's a rolling line at the top of the berm, a lot of the times the guys will just start cutting down, and they'll abandon that line, but that line will still be really good, or there will be a line there somewhere in between those lines. You know, he'll hear Daniel Blair talk about it actually, but it makes sense. Like, those guys abandon those lines, and there's still good lines in there. You just got to find them. So rolling the corners and keeping the momentum on that thing is like that's key. When you got to start cutting down out of the corners, like really, really tight at the bottom of the turn, and then you got a real foot short, like face 40-foot double. It's really hard to hit a deep rut and then get the power band up to where the thing doesn't want to just launch out from underneath you as soon as you give it gas. Cause it's a weird power when you're not in the power correctly or in the right spot, I guess.
Coach, you got anything for Jared?
With you going down to first gear, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead, bud. With you going all the way down to first gear, I can't imagine how rigid that rear end of that bike is.
Yeah.
Do you notice a significant difference? Like, how do you offset that thing from not letting it just be? You must feel like you're riding on concrete back there.
Yeah, so that was a really weird thing, like, because like I don't use first gear ever. Like, Daytona this weekend or last weekend was the first time that I've used first gear on that bike consistently lap after lap. And actually I shifted from third to first in the air over the Supercross triple going into the turn before the whoops one lap. And when I landed in first, dude, it didn't like it. It didn't like it at all. I mean, obviously, but
There's actually a video that you just shared on his story. Somebody actually caught a video of that. It doesn't catch the landing, but you can see him double downshift in the air.
yeah, it was the only lap that I
probably
did it too. After that, I did not do it again. I landed second, and then I would downshift to help myself slow down going into the corner. But yeah, the transmission did not like that.
I can't even imagine how rigid it must be when that thing is just first gear. That's insane.
The chain and everything. I mean, the swing arm alone just feels so tight in the rear. I know exactly what you're talking about. It does. It feels almost like you shouldn't be like riding or trying to jump anything in that gear at all.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how RPMs go up, the rear end gets progressively stiffer and stiffer. And, you know, you guys do such an incredible job, you know, from the belly button down, controlling that rear wheel. But then when that rear wheel doesn't want to sit through the stroke on the rear because it's just like a pogo stick, I'm like,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine how physically taxing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's even like Johnny asking me if I was like jumping through the whoops in first, dude. I don't know if I could hold on to the thing, honestly. Like, I could probably do it a couple laps in a row, but like second gear jumping through the whoops is almost perfect. It's like right at the right RPM. So, but yeah, it's definitely, it's not ideal, and it's not something that I like want to do more often. I hope that I do it less often, but yeah, I guess it's all right if you have to do it.
Yeah. I was just curious, when you download your heart rate data, a track like Daytona, I'd be curious, do you wear a heart rate monitor in training every day?
No, so I was actually just telling Johnny this at the beginning of the well, when we first got on this, but the at the beginning of the season, I mean, basically keeping up with heart rate, all that kind of thing, riding with my heart rate monitor. But when we get into the season, we start traveling around. I don't know, I just got a little lazy with it. And then, not to mention, we had our off the bike trainer pass away this past year from a crash at a local race. So, which was obviously terrible and hard to deal with, but he helped me out a lot with all my off the bike stuff, and just kind of keeping me in line with everything. So, but yeah, to your point though, I would almost feel like a track like Daytona is like, my heart rate probably wouldn't be as high as somewhere like this weekend where the track's a lot more tight. You have to almost manhandle the bike a lot more because of the ruts. You're constantly fighting the bike from, going right, left, out of the rhythm sections, trying not to cross rut, that kind of thing. I would imagine this weekend I'll probably be closer to my max than I was at Daytona.
Yeah, I would be very curious to see how much of a difference that really was, because it's, a lot of it, many times it has a tendency to go back to what you're comfortable with. If you tend to be more of an outdoorsy kind of person, you almost have a better smooth flow to yourself, versus if you're a little bit hyper tense, you're super tight, super tense, riding supercross, it can artificially drive those numbers up. I was just curious if you had any numbers to contrast it against. So, but we'll talk about it. And my condolences losing your trainer. I didn't know about that. So happy to help any way possible, as we said earlier.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. But I think it's always interesting for the listeners when they see the average and max heart rate. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Coach, you're on a little delay, so it's hard not to cut you off. But Jared,
no, his internet just went WFO. The little icon went from no bars to it's Minuteman right now. It's pinned. Well, it's ninth gear.
He's either holding really still or he's frozen. I'm not sure, but Jared,
who the fuck are you looking at, dude? Because his connection. Oh nope, there it goes again. Okay, man, Rob, I know what's going on there in Florida, but who is your ISP over there? Just digress.
AT&T, unfortunately.
Oh,
those fucking guys. Okay.
I'm telling you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Johnny, can I talk? Sorry, Jared. So being one of the only guys out there on a two,
I muted him just for giggles. Hold on.
I thought we lost you.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit,
we're in the middle of nowhere.
Oh shit! Now it's saying I have to ask him to unmute. Cooksey, I have to ask you to unmute. Okay, I'm asking you to unmute, so you gotta then unmute yourself.
It's a shit show, right?
Sorry, I was just trying to be a dick, and apparently I'm being like way more of a dick. Cooksey, you should be able to see a thing that says unmute.
Just blocked him. Escaped from the server.
Well, that got awkward real fast. Shit. Okay, technical difficulties. Cooksey, if you could hear me. If you can hear me. You can unmute yourself. Can you not unmute yourself?
Oh,
there
no.
you go. Boom. Instantly.
No, I turned that back on you. I was muting it on purpose just to fuck with you, Johnny, and see what you would do.
Dude, see, I'm feeling all bad now. Now my
I know.
feelings are
See,
hurt.
that's how I get you back.
Go.
Jackass. That was pretty good though. No, that was pretty good. I don't remember what I was saying, but anyway. So okay, no, I don't know what I was saying, Jared. Like So you're being on a 2-stroke, right? So the
Yep.
other guys are on 4 strokes. Nobody wants to get beat by a 2-stroke. Like, could you imagine if you were on one and you had to go back and explain why that 2-stroke passed you? You feel like guys race you extra hard because they hear that sound?
Honestly, dude, like everybody's been super cool this year as far as like after the race, they'll come up to me and they'll be like, dude, that thing was barking out there. Like that thing sounded so sweet when you went around, like anything like that. So like, I don't know, everybody's just kind of embraced it. I mean, I haven't had any run-ins with like, now I'm sure if you ran into somebody, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there that wouldn't be as stoked on it. But at the same time, it seems like everybody's kind of for it, which is cool. Cause I have had that thought before. Like I passed one of these dudes and, you know, they get a little salty about it and I just get cleaned out, put into the cheap seats the next corner. It's like, I don't really blame them for that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It would be good for the fans. Everybody would be stoked on that. Probably not for the takeout, but just for the action in general, especially in LCQ, like it's bound to happen anyways.
Yeah. Hey, is there background noise from me? Because the wind's blowing like 8,000 miles an hour here. So
I mean, I can meet you again if it's
Yeah.
it's real loud.
you meet me again and I'm just going to shut it off, Johnny.
Go to a different channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go live on my channel and try and compete with you.
Michael and Jared, do you think that you're faster on a 252 stroke or a 450?
I'm definitely not faster on 252 stroke.
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
seriously, Johnny, you're asking the mechanic if the mechanic is faster.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, the mechanic rides too.
No, it's not we. Last I checked, there's one dude on the bike.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. But
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can even answer that. I've been asked that question a bunch of times this season. Like, do you think you did better if you were on a 450? And there's definitely certain situations where it's like, I wish I had more. Or I wish I was on a 4-stroke, but at the same time, like, I don't know, dude. The bike's really good, and I feel like a lot of it is just like if the thing's not performing, a lot of it's me. Honestly, like the bike is really good, and Enzo, like what they've done with the suspension to make that thing work, I don't know what they did to it, but dude, that thing tracks so straight through the whoop section, like the straightest bike I've ever had track through a whoop section, and it's so surprising to me. But yeah, those guys have done a great job too. Just getting me comfortable on the thing. Yoshi coming up each round and kind of keeping up with us too. And also they've probably done how many sets of YZ250 stuff. So yeah.
But obviously, probably the start is probably the biggest complaint. That's why it'd be nice if you could race against the
right.
250.
Yeah. If it was a normal dirt start like motocross and supercross should be, then yeah, the thing would be competitive. But you put it on a great start where you just got to basically dump the clutch and put your core forward and just give it everything she's got. Like the thing just doesn't have the balls to come off the grate like that. Like
what gear you starting in?
So we've tried second and third, and second seems to work the best. Like I talked to Stank about running third, and he's like, every bike I ever had, I ran third gear wide open, just drop the clutch and it'll pull off the grate. Dude, I did that one time and I thought the clutch was about to come out of the damn side of the thing when I did that. And it stalled before I got off the grate. Like it stalled that quick. So instantly we're like, oh shit, we're gonna have to figure something else out. So that's been a work in progress though, dude. I can't hear the bike. Like I can't hear the bike when I'm beside a bunch of 450s on the gate. So it's really hard to tell where my RPMs are at, which is very tricky.
I don't even know if they make them for the 250s. I just assume, you know, how most of the factory guys have got the little RPM deal so that they know exactly where that ECU in the bike is going to make the most amount of power just for the start.
Yeah,
Did you ever think about potentially getting one of those?
Yeah, so it's never been done on a 2-stroke before, but Derek Harris, who does our motor work and he works with Get as well, he's actually been in touch with Get over in Italy to see if we can try and get something like that so we can run that RPM gauge on a front fender. Because I mean, we do have an RPM signal for the ignition, so it could be done. It's just a matter of getting it implemented. So right now that's kind of our only hope, but right now we kind of just have a Band-Aid fix of a line drawn on his throttle housing and a line drawn on his grip, and just kind of matching them up as kind of
A reference point.
a reference point of where we should kind of be at. But like you said, as soon as you get up on the line with 19 other 450s and they're all on the, like, got the revs up and stuff like that, you can't hear anything.
That's awesome.
And how
that
is
Derek
having no
Harris is doing
engine
your motors.
Yeah.
braking? Is that
Yeah, Derek-
interrupt?
Yeah, no, Derek's been killing it on the motors. I mean, he's all in on trying to develop the best YZ250 platform that you can make, and we've definitely been going through a bunch of different like piston setups and different porting and cylinder configurations. And Luke over there at Fatheads jumped on board and helped out with heads. So a bunch of different domes that we've been able to try out. So we put it on the dyno, and we can do 3 passes and pull a dome off and stick a new one in there and run it right back to back with any variables changing or anything like that. So I mean, it's been great, and Derek's been awesome. I can send him air density data from wherever we're at, and he spits back the jetting specs, and it's usually pretty spot on. So
That's awesome.
He's been awesome everywhere on that.
Yeah, I got to know him a little bit last year during the whole Brennan ordeal with the Deegans.
Yeah.
But moving on past that, so you guys are also fans. What do you have you been watching these top 3 guys in the 450 class? What do you got? What do you think, Jared? And if you're a gambling man, because I live in Vegas, and you had to pick one of those 3 guys for the title, who would you pick, Jared?
I'm going with Tomac.
Nice, I like that pick.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Hard not to.
I mean, Jared's gonna hate it, but I would say Webb. It's scary that he's this competitive this early. It's just, I mean, he's right there. Usually he comes live at the end of the seasons. For him to be in the mix this early is pretty impressive, and he's riding really well. But I mean, it's hard to bet against Tomac. I mean, even when you do fantasy picks, it's hard not to put him at the top of your picks every week, because it's just like, I mean, the dude just has it. He can qualify 5th that weekend and somehow just run away with the lead. It's somewhere he just like figures it out.
Why would Jared hate it if you pick Webb? Is there history there?
No, not really. He just grew up racing Webb, and
so I've always been one to really, like, not critique, but like I've always been real into like a flowy, like effortless style, which I'm not saying Cooper doesn't have an effortless style. It's just it's something about the way he rides the bike. It's just not like, doesn't, like, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. And
it's not as pretty. I'm with you.
Great style by any means, but I'm just saying from a fan standpoint, like I really, like, I appreciate watching Tomac, like that bulldog style, like that. Like, he's going to do like whatever it takes to like make that line work. Like, I truly appreciate that. But I also like Anderson, like he hangs it out, and Cooper's got his own style. But like, I don't know, when I watch the style on the bike, it's just not, and I'm sure a lot of people are not going to like this, but it's just not pretty to me, if that makes any sense at all.
That absolutely makes total sense. I mean, the guy wins. He wins with his mental toughness, not his on the bike finesse.
Yeah. I mean,
Not that his racecraft is great. He's got probably the best racecraft of anybody out there on the track, or one of the best, if not the best. But just, yeah, like if you're asking me like who I like to watch out of anybody, like Cooper's just not one of the first ones I'm going to pick. It's not that I don't like him or like his style, like the way he rides. Like, I think he's brilliant on a dirt bike. He is.
Yeah, if you're racing and you have Cooper breathing down your neck, you're not in a good spot, because I mean, I
also grew up in the same class as Coop, and we've been racing each other since we were 4 years old. I mean, not since he's turned pro. We've been on the same track, but you know, you get what I'm saying. So him, RJ Hampshire, Shane McElrath, like that whole group of dudes is like who I've been racing, like Bishelia, like those guys I've been racing since I could walk.
Yeah, so. And with Webb too, growing up racing him, looked like he tries to he's one of those guys that likes to piss off his competitors. Did he do that as a kid too?
No, he was just always really quiet and like kept to himself, and like he showed up to the race to do a job. You know what I mean? Like he was there to do a job, and growing up, I mean, it's really hard to have that mindset if you don't. Well, I say it's hard to have that mindset, but if you have that backing, that team, he knew where he was going. I mean, he knew where he's going with it. So, rightfully so, you show up, you're winning. I mean, that's what you're meant to do. So, yeah, he was never really like that, but he was always super gritty, like always had grit. And like, you knew like he was going to finish the moto no matter what, whether he broke his wrist, like no matter what, he was going to finish the moto.
Wow.
I have a
Yeah.
better
So-
question. Who is the most difficult guy to ride with on the track? Like you get kind of nervous being around them that they might put you in a precarious situation.
That's not a better question.
It's a way better question.
I mean, I first person that comes to mind is Barsha, but I'm not around him a whole lot. But whenever, like, if he's lapping me or if he's like, dude, I know it's Barsha. Like before he's even close, I know it's Barsha coming, and I'm out of the way. Like I'm not hesitating. I see a blue flag, and I know it's Barsha. I'm getting out of the way because he'll put you on the ground no matter what. Like it doesn't matter. Like you piss him off in any form while he's out there, he will put you on the ground or off the track. Like it doesn't matter.
At the first Triple Crown, Phil Nicoletti was testing for Feld some of those lights. Do you think that would be a good implementation for like blue flags to have all on everybody's triple clamps or no?
I think didn't Phil come out and say something though that he couldn't see the lights from like the rider's point of view? So I don't know if like that would be like, are you saying like a light to warn the riders that they're about to be lapped?
Yeah,
Or
to warn the rider of like any sort of hazard or whatever, red flag,
Yeah.
black flag.
Supercross, it's kind of, I mean,
They're out there. You can see that. You see when you get the blue flags. I mean, those dudes are on the track. I mean, and not only that, their mechanic is slamming the board on, or they got the thing just waving out in front of you. Like they make sure their board is in front of you, so you see like move or get out. Like they'll write shit on the board just so you see it, or they'll have the next teammate over the teammate's mechanic right on the board, like move.
Yeah.
I mean, that shit happens all the time.
Carlos will let you know if Cooper's coming behind you.
Yeah.
For sure.
And listen, I'm that guy. Like, I love watching racing, and I'm just as much of a fan of the sport as I am like a racer. And I hate, and this doesn't go like against anybody like personally, but I hate when the race gets interrupted by a lapper. And I do everything I can. I'm not saying I quit during the race, but like I do everything I can to get out of the damn way because there's a race going on. I'm not in it. And I know from a fan standpoint and from anybody else that's watching that race, like that's the last thing I want to see. And anybody else wants to see is a race get ruined by a lapper. But at the same time, like you're out there in your own race too. So there's a fine line between the two things. But overall, I'm like the guy where I'm kind of gonna waver because I want to see good racing.
So Jared, being that guy, you know, and it's a lot of pressure on you because you could be all of a sudden headlines because you changed the race. What could they do? Do you think I've heard different solutions like wave a guy off after 2 laps, like Johnny said, a light on your fender to let know they're right there. What would you suggest? Is there anything they can do to help with this lapper issue?
I mean, I don't
privateer class? Like not having
Johnny, let him answer. Johnny, did I ask you the question?
Expensive equipment. Jared, what do you have to say?
I mean, I don't think the lights are that bad of an idea as long as it's not like too distracting. Like that stuff doesn't, like for me, I don't get distracted by stuff like that. I mean, I don't even think I would see the light and instantly like think to myself like, okay, somebody's down or like blue flag, get out of the way. But I wouldn't like contemplate on it or like sit there and think about it. So I think that would probably be a pretty good idea as long as it was subtle. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know what you would do. I mean, the blue flags are there in front of you. Believe me, those guys see the blue flags. They just don't get out of the way.
And now in the AMA, it used to be hold your line, the faster rider will go around you. Now they tell you get off the main line and hold your line, right?
Yeah. So yeah, which is, I mean, listen, where you pick to go that lap to get out of the way is probably where the leader's going to go to try to get around you. Like, that's just the way it goes. Like, and I mean, yeah, more times than not, like guys are going to get out of the way. But like I said, I just don't want to be that guy that like ruined a race or like, yeah, ruined a race because he like was rolling in the middle of the track. Not even just rolling in the middle of the track, just not being courteous to the race leaders.
But even there's a couple weeks ago, there's a lapper in the way coming across the start. It might have been Tampa, but coming back across the start, there's a lapper in the way, and he was trying to get out of the way. When he tried to get out of the way,
he got in the way.
Yeah, the battle split around him, and he ended up getting out of the way into somebody who was in the battle. So
yeah, that's where Sexton got passed.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, there's also not like a time and a place, but it's sometimes like getting out of the way could put you in the way. So it's almost, I think the rule before of just hold your line and they'll get around you. I mean, they have their own race, and if they want to get around, they can. I mean, they're going to find their way around. They're definitely going faster than you. So
yeah, well, you guys are top tier athletes here, and again, my point of view is if those guys have been lapping up to almost inside the top 10 every round, and an easy way to fix this is let's turn the 250 class into like a Formula 2 class, and then have all of the factory teams move up to 450s. So you all have big money in the 450 class, and then you just have young talent that are just trying to take a spot of a factory ride from moving up into the 450 class. I think that it makes the most amount of sense, because you wouldn't have as much of a lapper issue, because you would have guys on the track, at least the top 20. There's not a 5-6 seconds a lap swing.
Johnny, I think that's a great idea, but I also think it'd be awesome to have unicorns ride us to the pits and serve ice cream at lunch, but it's just not going to happen. We got to go step by step, bro.
Yeah, and I also think with that too, there's always going to be somebody in like that Formula 2 class, like that lower class, who's going to think that they need to be up at the next level, and obviously like getting opportunities to be on the factory programs and things like that. It's just,
but it would be a good form of racing to have 20 guys out there that can all run within like 2 seconds of a lap of each other. Imagine that racing, like first from 20th, Johnny, they're all within 2 seconds of each other.
Your stock class is coming back to you. This is your time, Johnny.
Well, yeah.
Yes, exactly. The stock class. Well, Jared, you were just talking about it with racing against Webb, like early in your career as a young man, that he already had a pick on a factory team going pro, where it's like, okay, that's really where the issue starts, is it starts with all these kids, and Adam Cincerello, a Faulkner, a Lawrence. Well, Lawrence really didn't do a whole lot of stuff. Anyway, I digress. From the amateurs, they just get set up into a factory rig, and then now their bikes are all of a sudden 2-3 seconds a lap faster, where really I feel those factory rides should be given at the professional level of racing. We shouldn't have kids that are getting paid to race on 50s and 60s. I think that's where the problem starts.
Kind of like college, with like college sports, like the way they used to be, like people wouldn't make money. I mean, yeah, I could see that. My only thing would be like these teams and they're almost like grooming these kids in a sense, like, and you have this really good equipment from such a young age. So it's not as much of a transition going from a stock bike or not having that much help to all of a sudden you're on a factory team with all this cool stuff. Like, I think they're more or less looking at it like, look, this kid, if we have him on the team for 3-4 years beforehand, then he's already going to be ready, because he's already got all this other stuff behind him that got him ready for that factory team. If that makes any sense at all.
He's been around the support program for so long. So he's been around this like regimented program of like, you train this much, and like when you show up to the race, you're going to have this full setup there. You're going to have somebody working on your bike. Like, you show up, you race, and you go out and win.
So it's not like an overwhelming feeling in a sense. At least that's how I see it. That's kind of just like what I get out of it, because they've been doing that for years now. I mean, really since the facilities opened up, like they'll pick these kids up at a very young age. Like Cooper Webb was I mean, back then, like it wasn't unheard of, but it was a lot less common to happen. Nowadays, I mean, you flip a coin and it's happening everywhere. But like Cooper, he had a factory ride. Like he won Loretta's in 2002. And fun fact, actually, the first moto, he ended up first, and I ended up second in the P-Dub class. Second moto, I ended up 24th because I fell in the first time. I choke stuck. The third moto, I ended up winning, and I beat Cooper. I ended up 8th overall. And from that weekend on, Cooper he had a Honda ride and got flown out to California to do the I Want to Ride Honda commercial like 2 weekends after Loretta's. And ever since, the kid's been on a factory ride. So, I mean, you give and take. There's always been instances in, amateur career, even now, to where it's like, damn, I wish I would have known like now what I knew. Like, I wish I would have knew back then what I know now. But it's like, I mean, what do you do? It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, but you got to have a little bit of luck. It's not so much the working part is the easy part. Everybody can work really hard, but it's having being in the right place at the right time sometimes. Because Jared, as a professional there, if we were to just take all of the riders in the world, we could easily have a couple hundred guys that could qualify for a Supercross main event. The problem is the resources, and the goal should be for the sport is how do we make the cost go down so that we can have all these guys get in here so that we're literally going to have better racing for the fans. And that's the issue again that I'm talking about with the freaking amateur stuff.
Johnny, I do like your stock class idea. I wish they could do that. And in addition to the 250 and 450, maybe ditch the futures and have a stock round at each round. I think that'd be cool.
We agree on something, Cooksey.
We do. We actually agree quite a bit more, which is fun to disagree.
Yeah, true.
Well, and the thing that's always interesting to me is if you look at, and Jared, think back to the pro sport class at Loretta's when you had Chisholm, Kennard, Izzy, and, Trey Kennard, he went the distance. You look at the guys coming into the pro ranks now, Jet Reynolds, these guys, you guys have probably also seen the Instagram picture that's going around where it was the Cowie picture with all 8 riders. And now as we go into this round, there's only one. I think it just shows how the amateur program is not very well designed in regards to really grooming an athlete that by the time they get ready to go to, let's say, factory pro circuit or at the time Geico Honda, you don't see them really blossoming and excelling to that next level. It's almost like they're already burnt out when they get to the point when they should be taken off to the next level. Then you look at guys, and I'm just going to pull a couple different names, but you didn't hear about the amateur sensation like a Jay Coop who really excelled. Now, again, he had good careers as amateurs, but didn't really see him catapult the way like Jay Coop did. If you were to compare like a Nico Izzy or a Stroop or somebody like that, that was good, but they just didn't blossom up as quickly as everybody had anticipated. And I think Johnny, I know you're very frustrated with the whole amateur scene where, think about it right now. We just started with Daytona. You have kids that are going to race Sunday and Monday at the Ricky Carmichael amateur race, travel Tuesday. They're racing Freestone Wednesday to Sunday, travel one day and race Spring-a-Ding. As an amateur racer, I don't know how the parents can afford being on the road for 3 weeks like that. But then right off that, you've got to go right into an area and then possibly another area and another regional, because now they've broken up big bike to small bike, which just splinters it and makes it more expensive. The parents, the family, the kids, Jared, I don't know if you're at liberty or if you're comfortable talking about it, but since Daytona, how much quote unquote off the bike training have you had time to do based on having to drive and everything else to get to Indy?
1 day on the mountain bike with a buddy.
And I just don't think people understand that, it's absolutely insane. It just, the system is, it's interesting how the system doesn't really seem to take into consideration what it takes for you physically to recover from a race when you don't have the luxury of jumping on a plane, getting back home while somebody else drives your bike. And again, we're not into redistribution of wealth at all. It's just, I've said for years, I think the pro motocross, as much as I wouldn't like it as a fan, selfishly, I like working with the GNCC riders because you race every other Sunday, which means you race Sunday, you recover to Wednesday, you train Wednesday to Wednesday and do a 3-day taper, go into the race and race on the weekend. That every other weekend gives you a chance to legitimately recover and then regroup. And, instead you guys are racing sequential weekends and then they just increase the number. It's just hard. I can't even imagine how physically difficult it must be for you when you've got to jump in a, 24, 36 hour drive after racing at the way you do all day Saturday. So mad respect for you guys, but I don't know how you're able to do it for as long as you have.
I, man, I don't know. Believe me, there was a couple of years where I was just like, man, is it even worth continuing to do this? And I mean, you're spending so much money and time doing it, and it's like really for just the love of the sport in a sense. But luckily, with having Michael around and helping with the driving, split that up. I mean, that helps out a ton. But yeah, it's demanding, and like Michael and I just talked about this the other day. Like, I haven't got to ride a practice track since we've been in California, which has been what, a month and a half now.
Yeah,
So like
almost
I
2
haven't,
months. Yeah.
I haven't ridden Supercross other than being at the races. Like, I haven't practiced Supercross. I haven't ridden other than just being there on the weekend. So like last weekend, I obviously raced Daytona, and then I've sat all week, and I'll go race Indianapolis this weekend. But like, I don't have the luxury of being on a bike, unfortunately, where I live. But I just don't have that resource. So that's something else to kind of consider and deal with. But I don't know. I also feel like when I get to the races, at this point, you know, where I'm at, I'm more comfortable than ever. Like I still get nervous, but I'm not near as bad as I would have been 3-4 years ago. You know what I mean? It's just not as serious to me in a sense. I know that I'm not going for any sort of ride, nothing like that. So it's like, just go out there and do your thing and have fun.
It's interesting
Do
you
you
say that. Small
respond-
little segue. Finallyfast.com. Appreciate it. It is a group effort. So thank you for the donation. On that note, Jared, when you go race arena cross, do you, okay, maybe a double-edged question here. Do you make more money at arena cross? So therefore you're like, hey, I'm going to push a little bit more than I do in supercross, because supercross, you're there to be a part of the show, and like you were saying, just enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I look at it any differently going to an arena cross other than like the money. You're gonna, if you do well at the arena cross, you're gonna make more money than going to supercross. At least for me, and like realistically of where I could place in a main event in the 450 class, like I'm gonna make more money going to an arena cross and getting top 3 in both mains. And then on top of that, I mean, I get more TV time, I get airtime, I get, you know, TV time for the sponsors, which you don't get a lot of the time with Supercross. A lot of the time you don't even get the time of day to even thank one of your sponsors, let alone a bunch of them. So it's like, you got to take that into consideration as well, along with the money. And sometimes the travel, like if the race is closer, if it's half the distance and they're going to pay me 2-3 times as much, like if I do well, why stress myself to go to the Supercross at 17 hours whenever we can go to one that's 4 or 5 hours? I can make double or triple the amount of money. Just doesn't seem like that smart of a business plan. And then on top of that, like I said, the sponsors like it because you can give them some TV time.
Yeah, you've been all over Arena Cross's Instagram, and it's been sweet seeing you. That's why I wanted to get you on this show. Callie Weasel said, why don't you hit tracks up when you're traveling between the races? I kind of know, but if you want to tell the people in the chat why it's hard to.
Well, a lot of the time it's just traveling from round to round and not having a place to ride in between rounds. Like a true Supercross track is far and few between, unless you're in Texas, unless you're in Florida, unless you're in the right place in Oklahoma. If you're in the right place, like California, you can get away with it. But like on the East Coast or like the Midwest, like Supercross, like real Supercross tracks are hard to find, or even arena cross tracks for that matter. And especially this time of year when it's cold. I mean, it's pretty much cold everywhere besides the West and if you go south. So traveling all that way and then trying to get to a practice track, driving even 5-6 hours to a practice track on a Tuesday after you get back. And you spend a day doing that or 2 days or whatever. And then you're basically loading up and leaving that Thursday to go to the race. I mean, it's almost more worth just recovering for the week than to try to stress yourself and strain yourself to ride that much, or just train yourself to try to ride that week, because you're always better off, at least this is what I've been taught, you're always better off to go into the race underprepared than overworked. So I don't know how true that is, but it always seems to kind of work out. So
I also have a
No.
9 to 5 job, so I can't just stay on the road.
well,
Unfortunately.
that too. Michael has an actual true paying job that isn't dirt bikes, that he does 9 to 5 throughout the week. So it's not like, that's the other thing. We can't just stay on the road 100% of the time throughout Supercross.
Which is a bummer that you guys don't make that much. Make sure you go follow these guys. And I know Cooksey wants to talk a little bit about some silly season stuff, I believe. I think he had some info that he wanted to potentially argue about.
Possibly, but just real quick, I want to go back to the Supercross versus Arena Cross. The way the Arena Cross, I feel like it treats the riders a lot better because it's owned by riders, former riders like Jack Brassfield. I checked the Loretta Lynn's results. I actually raced against him back in the day. These guys understand it from both points of view, the business point of view and the racing point of view, whereas Supercross is run by circus promoters and people who are completely out of touch. I mean, when they announced the Supermoto deal, they had wine, a toast. This is not a wine and toast, wine and cheese type of sport. It's just not.
Bring a beer.
Yeah.
Exactly. Bring a monster, just do something. But that was one of the dumbest things. I'm like, that literally shows you how out of touch they are. And that's why I think Arena Cross is going to grow. It'll only go to a certain point, but yeah. But no, silly season. I heard there's a guy who had a knee surgery. He's got dreadlocks. He might be the only guy racing with dreadlocks. He looks like Kawasaki's been sniffing around. Have you heard anything about that, Coach?
I have not heard anything relevant to Kawasaki. I'd be lying if I said yes. I find it hard to believe, though, that he would leave Husky with as much that they have invested in them over there. Especially, what is RJ looking to go 450 next year, or is he going to try to get a 250 title? That's the big moving pin over at Husky right now.
I'll say after that performance, there's probably, I would say he's going 450 because, I mean, he rides it better. If he can back that up this weekend, it'll really add fire to that.
I mean, if that's the case, I was under the impression that RJ was going to try to get a 250 championship, especially if Hunter ends up winning it if Jed ends up winning it on the West. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything in that regards. I've just heard the big moving pin is whether or not RJ goes 450 or not, because if he doesn't go 450, then it would be Malcolm and Craig for one more year. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, well, yeah, this is the end of Malcolm's 2-year deal, and then Craig has one more. So nope, I haven't heard anything on that landscape.
How about, so we know Sexton's going KTM. The other KTM guy that, I think they're trying to keep Webb. I don't know if that's going to stay, but that puts Plessinger out. Are you sure that? I don't, but I'm hearing.
No, I've heard that Webb is going back to Yamaha. So that's why I say that vacancy will be there. I don't see Webb staying at KTM. Now, we saw that Sexton signed a pretty early deal going over to KTM. Right now the bike seems to be working pretty well for Coop. So if last year when he was madder than a hornet about the way the bike was handling, did he already have some negotiations in place? Is he now thinking twice about that? Kind of almost the reverse of what Plessinger had. Plessinger was doing well in the Yamaha, went to the KTM, didn't go so well. We knew he was having buyer's remorse in that regards initially. Didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but I think you'll see Webb go to Yamaha next year.
Yeah. And guys, I'm just having a little fun here. These are not sourced rumors. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying that he's going there, but I did hear, and I think there's a good chance that Kawasaki is sniffing it out. I don't think they're happy with Anderson. So.
Well, because of his tweets?
Well, Anderson doesn't have to worry about it because Anderson's
his
going to Triumph.
Tweets? So are you kidding me? God,
it's just, dude, it's just not a good
man.
fit. The way that, I'm sorry, that they need to fire the manager before they get rid of Anderson. Like, yeah, you got to do better than that.
What does AC
Yeah,
do?
I don't think Anderson cares because he's looking for a chance to get back with Bobby, and that's going to be a good reunion for those guys.
Guys, Michael was asking about AC.
Yeah, what does AC? They keep trying.
I don't know. Like I said, I have a really good source in that corner there, and it's not good. I don't know what you do when you have a wrist that's degenerative and it's not getting better. You can rest it all you want, but there's no surgeon. The American surgeons at this point, he's going to have to either go to Puerto Rico, Mexico. It's going to take something experimental. I mean, he's in the Rick Johnson category with that wrist. So I don't know. It's sad as hell, but I don't know.
They signed Jared Lesher and Michael Shaw as new head factory mechanic
to display their new 2-stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back with the 2-stroke.
Hey, why don't we do this instead? Why don't we start the idea that me, Stank Dog, and one other person, I don't care if it's
Bring Carson Brown.
Yeah, it could be Carson Brown. You get all three of us, you put us on a satellite 2-stroke team, and you let us run the whole series. Imagine how much traction and the amount of fans that you probably get.
Oh my God.
Get around one bike, a privateer on one bike. So you can imagine 3 guys out there running all
you're spending less money to build the bikes and the equipment. You're spending less money for everything basically, other than you're gonna pay the same for travel, but like your expenses for your bikes, like your mechanical stuff is gonna be way down, and you're probably gonna get a lot more money thrown at you.
Yeah, the exposure that team would get and those riders would get. I mean, riders aside, any team who does it, regardless of who the riders are,
yeah, it wouldn't matter.
The media and the attention that a 3-man 2-stroke team would get would be through the roof.
No, it matters who the riders are. You got to have Stank, you got to have you, and Carson Brown would be the perfect third. And there's got to be, with all these marijuana legalizations, there's got to be a dispensary with some extra cash that wants to back you guys. Because you're trying to tell me Stank Dog couldn't be the brand of something? Like, he's literally made for that.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he I'm sure he knows somebody, or he could probably get hooked up with somebody. I haven't even ran.
Maybe trade for cash, not product, though, Stank.
Yeah.
Well, no, look
That's
at these
a brilliant
bikes.
idea.
Jared, look at your bike. That thing is sick. Got to thank Michael for keeping it all shiny. How do you even keep the white plastic? You guys probably put new plastic on it like every weekend, but man.
Can I ask who? So I like your poll, Johnny, the 2-stroke team. Who said no? And if you could please elaborate, because I see zero downside to that. Like, I don't understand why you would say no.
Yeah, I don't see a downside.
And maybe I'm missing something. If I am, just
and you bring a point, Jared. What would be cool is the money that's saved. Can you imagine the money that was saved? You could fly to a facility where you could practice on a legitimate supercross track for 2 days and then fly back out on Thursday night or Friday morning. Because, we've got a good friend. He's actually part of our Complete Racing Solutions elite team, Rylan Moonson. And the biggest challenge he run into is there's no place to ride legitimate supercross whoops. Doesn't matter how trained, there's just nothing that emulates, whether it's bike setup, approach, the whole 9 yards. And I think what you're scared, if we save that much money on a 4-stroke, let's say you have a 2 or 3-man team, quick flight back, everybody trains together, everything is to scale. Less wear and tear in your body, 17-hour windshield times. You're not eating, fast food at the airport. It's 2:00 in the morning when you're getting a red eye.
Right.
Legitimately, the budget and money that's saved and how streamlined that could be, and you just float in and float out. And let's face it, I don't think this, like for myself with our amateur development program, I care less about the actual finish place as much as I do the character of the individual off the track. When a young rider comes up and you're willing to sit and talk with them and give them an autograph and ask them about where they ride and what they ride and what their favorite gear is, that's far more important. Now, granted, I'm not trying to sell units of motorcycles, but I still think, to like what Mike said, who wouldn't be attracted to that from a PR standpoint? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
exactly. And we also thought too, even from like one of these manufacturers' point of view, Yamaha makes a YZ250, which is a motocross racing bike. So we're racing a bike that they make for motocross and supercross at the highest level. Getting support from one of these, obviously one of the Austrian brands or Yamaha, like whoever makes the 2-stroke still. They make the product, and that would be a way for them to display it more. We're just a one-man thing. We don't have any dealer support. We don't have any OE support or anything like that. But we're out here riding one of their models at the highest level by ourselves. Nobody else is doing it. So to be able to put more of their motorcycles on track to show their potential would be a bonus even for the manufacturer.
Last
give
question,
one-
guys. It's kind of
one person-
controversial, but here we'll let Rob go.
Yep. Go ahead, brother.
All right. I'm swinging with it. I'm swinging with it. You have been all over the internet, and your two-stroke. Were you guys invited to press day at Indy? Like, because you guys should have already done press day, but you guys are still a couple hours from the track.
No, you don't. I mean, because I pretty much handle like the managing side of Jared, so I deal with his emails and stuff like that. You don't. I don't know how it. And maybe other people get invited for it, but we've never been invited to do press day. We've always had to beg for it, and then you just kind of get lucky. So when we did the Marines kit for Tampa, we were lucky enough to get to do that press day down there, just to kind of show off the bike that we had. And then usually you can get lucky with doing press day at your local track, like your home race, so Atlanta, hopefully. But yeah, no, as far as getting an invite to press, I don't think I've heard of anybody getting invited to do it. You kind of got to beg and get lucky.
Besides all the same guys that are there every single weekend that get to do it, they get invited.
Well, because
but
you typically qualify for the night show right out of qualifying pretty much any race that you go to. I find it silly that you're not invited to press, or you have to beg for it.
dude, they still put us in C practice sometimes whenever we qualify into the night program, and then we still get C practice the next weekend, and we're like, how the hell does that even happen?
Which isn't even on, it's not even on race day live. So
Which is
Not
also super annoying.
yeah, not only do you not get, like, usually the privateers don't get very much notoriety on like press day or race day live. But once you get in C group, they don't even televise it. They're talking about other stuff while C group is back out there. So yeah, I mean, make the night show one race, and then like you skip the next round because it goes to Oakland, and then you show up at the next race and they're like, oh, you're in C group because you didn't race Oakland. It's like, I mean, you're getting, I mean, I know it's just the next group out, but I mean, you're getting the worst of the worst track, especially 450.
Yeah, that's
Mike, not to put you on the spot, but they literally said because you didn't race Oakland, that's why you get C class.
Yeah, well, because it's usually a top, like they kind of do it based on like your results from the last week. So if you make the main, you'll be in A group the following week, and usually like the fast 40 from like that make the night show the week before will be A and B group. Obviously there are some exceptions in there depending on like who signs up and whatnot, but that's usually how it goes. And usually, I mean, if in our experience, I mean, if you ever make the top 40 and go to the night show, I mean, it's kind of like expected, like, okay, next week you're going to be in B group. And yeah, I mean, when you walk up there and go through tech and they stick a sticker on your bike and say, okay, you're going to be group C, and you're like, what
changed?
Yeah, what did we do wrong? Like, is it because we went to arena cross? I mean, not to say, I mean, it's definitely not because of that, but we skipped.
Just joke about that.
We skipped Oakland that weekend, just because no privateer can afford to go from Tampa to Oakland. But I mean, when you get hit with C group after qualifying for the night show before, and what was it? I guess in Houston when he went down in the whoops and
still qualified.
Yeah, he had to go to the hospital for like a chest injury, but we still qualified top 40, like a time stuck. We got top 40, and then obviously we didn't get to race the night show, so we still got C group the next week. So it's not really sure, but yeah, that's how it goes.
Well, what's
I
interesting
appreciate
is
the
like the
feedback.
first East Coast round, you have Talon Hawkins, you've got Hayden Deegan, Hymus. They all didn't race the rounds before, but they were in A
That's one of
group.
the
I know it was the
That's
first
one of the
round, but
exceptions Mike was talking about.
Yeah, they're money talks.
yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Well,
Yeah,
do you
for
guys
sure.
have one final question to ask these superstars before we let them go? Because I know they got a couple hour drive.
Jared, so what are the chances are we going to get this thing into a main? How close are we?
Ah, man, we're close. Yeah, this weekend, if it doesn't happen, I'm just gonna do the whole like Travis Pastrana, like ride the thing off a freaking ramp into a body of water type deal. No, I think last weekend, I really had it in my head set that I was not leaving there without making the main, and then the whole motor thing happened, of course, which kind of shook the day up. And I mean, we salvaged what we could and still made it good day out of it for what we had to go through. But I mean, this weekend, yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm like kicking myself in the ass. Like, dude, like we gotta go. It's not like I don't want to just make one and be done with it. I want to get on a roll, and I'm sure everybody does. But I just want to get on a roll and try to make more than one. I mean, I don't want to be that guy who just makes one and done. So, and I want to actually get out there and ride the main event, even if it's whatever it is. I'm just going to try to ride through it and do the best I can, and where I end up is where I end up. Try not to just ride around.
It's been
I
too
love
long.
it, dude. Love it, dude. Go get it.
Yeah, that too. Thanks, brother.
Coach, do you have a final question?
Yeah, and I don't mean to catch Mike and Jared off guard at all. What would be a necessary budget for a 3-man 2-stroke team ballpark to do it correctly based on what you're doing and what you're seeing?
I almost feel like if you were to think about it like per rider, I would almost say you could get away with what, $2,500 a weekend per person would get you through your expenses, especially with flights and everything like that. Like if you're paying for your own flights, like, and they're giving you per diem or whatever the case is, like, I don't know. I feel like it's almost like $2,500 a rider. Like even right now, like if somebody comes up to us and asks us about a title sponsor, like ballpark, it's like between $2,000 and $2,500 a race. Like that's like the raw cost that it costs us to do this stuff, to pay for the fuel, to pay for everything in between. Like that's just the raw cost to do it. Basically, that's not even like guaranteed money in our pocket at the end of the weekend. So
that's not factoring in like pocket money. You're not saying, oh, it's $2,500. It's going to cost me 15, and I'm going to pocket 1,000 every week. I mean, that's the true. I mean, from when we leave the door to getting back, I mean, that's probably about the cost that it takes for a hotel for a night, and like everything as far as fuel and getting tires and stuff like that.
On the road, everything. It all adds up.
Everything all in.
Do you guys break even?
Yeah, we break even. Now, luckily this season, with everything that's kind of happened with, I don't know, just our Instagram and everything, we've luckily had some people step up and help us out with some money. Really first time ever. So that's been a really big help and kind of taking weight off our shoulders, knowing that that we're not going in there for a loss, essentially.
And going back to Coach's question, obviously the initial setup for a 2-stroke team is going to be a lot less. I mean, you could be in a pretty good race, like top tier race bike, for half of what a good 250F would be. And I mean, if you can have on a 2-stroke team, I mean, you could be a small 2-stroke team and you could still have a spare full built motor sitting in a rig or in a van and just be safe with that. We do have 3 motors. Obviously we didn't have one in Daytona just because one was out being rebuilt, so it was unfortunate for that. But I mean, riding a 2-stroke, have the ability to have a spare motor, and I mean, a race team like that, you would have the budget to be able to afford to do something like that.
I don't really know.
I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, as far as like an all in, I mean, it's really.
Oh, I think we lost them.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we lost them because they're at a gas station. Well, you know what? That is almost perfect timing, though, at their expense, which is unfortunate because they are the stars of the show. Make sure you head over, you follow them, you let them know that you support them. And I really appreciate them coming on the show. And this weekend, let's hope we get that 250 in the main event. As always, Cooksey, it's always a pleasure to argue with you. Coach, always love listening to what you have to say. Till next time, we got to keep it WFO. I know, Cooksey, you have a new channel.
I do, all day, every day, with Cooksey and Gina. We talked about some interesting stuff over there. We talked about the shutdown and what it did to kids, what it did to the world, immune systems, masks. We get into all that crap over there. So check it out and give us a subscribe.
And then Coach, Complete Racing Solutions, who's actually helping me with some triathlon training. We're going to have some more videos of that. But where can we find you?
Yeah, that's the best place. Just check us out at CompleteRacingSolutions.com. We have a membership area. Chris talks about it each day on his show. It's everything from a general fitness program all the way to high level performance. And then obviously we've got customized programs over and above that if you need it. But more importantly, if you guys have any questions, frustrations, if you guys follow me at Coach Robb Beams on Instagram, I do a video a day. Those are all followers' questions. So if you have a question, I will convert it into a video for the benefit of everybody. But thanks for the support. Thanks for letting me be on the show, guys. Another really good one. I hope we brought some more insight to the life of a privateer. These guys are incredible individuals, that's for sure. And thanks again for the opportunity, guys.
And all the links are in the description below. So till next time.
We got our 2-stroke.
Nothing but 2 strokes from here on out.
Right? Yeah.